Welcome in, everybody, to Warchant TV. Look to the lower right. There I am. Hey, how's it going? This is Tom Lang, the director of original content at Warchant TV, and I am flanked. I'm surrounded by, it's a Brady Bunch screen of the powers that be at Warchant TV. Gene Williams, the founder and administrator, to the top left. Top right is Corey Clark, the senior writer, the lead writer at warchant.com, and, of course, our managing editor is to my left. That is Ira Schofel. Before we get going and commiserating about our top 40 rankings preseason. I wasn't a part of the staff, so I get to mediate. I get the fun job this year at least. Right. Make sure, everybody, it's right underneath me. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you had not done so yet to Warchant TV. What are you waiting for? Every time you hit subscribe and the bell, we find more Florida State fans who are looking for the best Florida State coverage in the business. So we appreciate your support. And if you don't like the video just yet, just wait 5 minutes and then you'll want to hit that thumbs up button. Again, we appreciate your support. So here's what we're doing today, everybody. We are revisiting our top 40 list. We are accountable here at warchant.com and Warchant TV. We'll find out what we got the most right, what we got the most wrong, and we'll do so in kind of a snake draft format. So first of all, before we get going, Mackenzie Milton was at the top of a lot of our lists, so we offer a mea culpa because he was number one in a lot of places here on Warchant. I can see. Yes, Gene.
I just want to throw in. I did not. I was the one that did not have him number one. Not that I want to take a victory lap. It's like I had him number 4, I believe, so, or number 5, something like that. So not that great on there too. But I just want to point that out. I am the one that had Mr. Travis ranked ahead of him and predicted him to be the starter.
All right, so the cart is now before the horse, and here we go. Gene is going to start because he's in the top left. What are you guys most proud of that you got right in your preseason top 40 list? We'll go to the negative second as we're wrapping up our year. We got to start and end on a positive note. So, Gene, you did have Jordan Travis listed ahead of Mackenzie Milton, which seemed crazy in August, but you proved to be correct. What else stands out to you about your list, and what are you proud of? What did you get right before
first,
look at Ira already not even letting me talk.
I want to know. I want you to share your wisdom with us and how you knew that Jordan Travis was going to beat out the former Heisman contender,
right,
Mackenzie Milton.
And you still had Milton at 4th, so it wasn't like you thought if you'd have had him completely off the list.
Well, that's what I said. It's not like I had him off the list, so I was hedging a little. But we all saw spring. I mean, other than the spring game, Travis was the better player, I thought, going into this. So we had a little bit on there, and I had a little bit of an issue with a guy that was having a horrific leg injury. And you go back and look at UCF, they had a better offensive line. They had 2 guys playing in the NFL at wide receiver on his team. We none of these guys playing right now, maybe McLean someday, but there's no way there's an NFL wide receiver on this roster. So I thought it was a stretch to think he was just going to come in and pick up where he left off. So I'll take a little victory lap over that one, a very slight one. Obviously, I got right, Jermaine. I think I had him number 1. I think you guys had him number 2. So nobody was that far off, but obviously he was a beast this year. The other one, I guess I think I had Andrew Parchment lower than anybody. I just was not buying into the hype. A kid out of Kansas he was okay one season at Kansas, and he was going to come in here and be the savior wide receiver. So I had a couple. We'll get back to a few. I obviously missed on a couple as well.
Well, if you're going to make one play, make a play on 4th and 14 so that people have to remember your name and Noles trivia forevermore. So, Corey, we'll go to you next. What are you most proud of that you got right in your top 40 list?
Well, all of it. If you go back and look, it's just nails. The whole thing is just right on par. I mean, it's crazy. It's like I should bet on these things. I have the way I can see into the future. These things are really hard. Let's say that. Let's preface that. I didn't have a lot to feel proud of. As I went back over my list, I'm like, yikes. Yeah, Jermaine Johnson. Great. Good job, Clark. Everybody can see that. I do like the Keir Thomas that I had him 3rd, mainly because it was more of a need. It's kind of like goes back to the Mackenzie Milton thing. It was wishful thinking. Like, how important would it be to Florida State if Mackenzie Milton was awesome like he was in 17? That would have been if we got the 17 Mackenzie Milton, you probably get 2 extra wins. That's how important that would have been, but we didn't get that. With Jermaine Johnson, though, and Keir Thomas, I'm like, man, what if they had an outstanding pass rush? How would that impact the defense? And we saw it. It got, I don't know, it went from 88th in the country in total defense to top 40, top 50, maybe in the hundreds to top 50. It got so much better because of those 2 dudes. And Keir Thomas was the one, because we didn't see him in the spring. He was the one that I felt the best about, looking back at my list, that I had him 3rd. And he's right up there. That's if we probably re-ranked him, he would certainly be in the top 5.
Ira, okay. These guys have been outside of your one outburst where you had to cut off Gene in the beginning. Everybody's behaved. What do you think? Your best picks so far, and how much better are you than everybody else here on the staff?
Well, I'm gonna compliment Corey on the Keir Thomas thing because I think as a staff, I think we had him around number 9, and I think that was basically it might have been kind of wishful thinking because to Corey's point, we did not see him in the spring. He was coming off of an injury, didn't look in great shape, so there were a lot of question marks there. But I think we knew he had produced at South Carolina, so we were hoping. So as a staff, I think we had him a little too low, but Corey did have him highest up at number 3. For me, man, I'm going to give myself 2 pats on the back. One's a minor one. It's a small victory, but I'm going to take it. I had Jamie Robinson higher than anybody else. I had him number 5. I think he came in at number 6, largely because of my top 5 pick. Some other people had him a little bit lower. We all had him in probably around the top 10, but I felt good about that pick. And then the other one would be Treyshawn Ward. I think I was the only one that had him in the top 40. I think I had him at 27, if I'm correct, based on what we saw in the spring. And then just the way the coaches talked about him, the fact that they put him on scholarship in the spring. It's unfortunate we didn't have him in the top 40 when you look at some of the people we did have in the top 40.
Hey, and I want to jump in here and give Ira a little credit too, because we back when we did these rankings, and I get them all compiled, and I go through like invariably somebody leaves somebody out, and Ira did not have Dante Lucas on the list. So I'm like, Ira, you forgot about Dante Lucas. He said, no, I didn't. I'm not ranking in my top 40. And at the time, I was like, I don't know, buddy. But yeah, I say that on the other end, I already nailed that one. Obviously, in hindsight, absolutely would not have made the top 40 or maybe not the top 100.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dante. I still love you.
Yeah. You'll always be the Pope.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll always be the Pope to us.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a positive thing worth getting extra points for, but if a guy's no longer a part of the program and you don't have him on your list and he's going to be a starter, that is worth a couple extra points if we're being cold-blooded here in the system. So that's well done, Ira. Okay, so we're at snake draft time. We're going back to you, Ira. The things you're least proud of on your top 40 list, the blunders, if you will.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I think I was the only person that did not have Jermaine Johnson. Not only did we not have him number 1 on our list overall, which we should have, I think Gene did have. Most of us picked him number 2. I actually had him number 3 on my list, which is unfortunate. And
but you did that because you ranked the quarterbacks 1.
I did.
That makes sense. You knew he was going to be very impactful. You can't take a real hit, man. That doesn't. Oh, I had Jermaine Johnson at number 3. What an idiot.
Well, then
you had to have a bigger one than that.
I'm sure I did. I definitely did. Come back to me. Can we come back to me, Tom? Can I come back and get my whippings?
Yes, that's right. Yes, no problem. Corey, go ahead next.
I've looked at this and it's all horrible. It's so bad I don't want to do it next year. I mean, there's nothing good about this. Parchment at 4, Travis J at 6. I mean, I could go down the lines. I told y'all, got 23 and 24 were Emmett Rice and Brandon Moore. And my 25th guy was Thomas Schrader. So I had 3 guys that didn't play a snap in the middle of my list. So there's some really bad ones. I think, probably the one that I really screwed up on the most, because a lot of it is just a crapshoot, man. We didn't know anything about these players, so it's hard. Jashawn Corbin, I should have had higher than 14.
We all should have. He came in overall, I think, at number 13.
Yeah,
and he should have been a top 5.
I mean, he was one of the 5 or 7 best players on this team, and he was good at the end of last year. And I think I was still holding on to the guy I saw the first half of 2020, and not the guy that showed that explosiveness there at the end of the season, the NC State game, then the Duke game a few weeks later. That's the guy that he was, and he was a second-team All-ACC guy. He was a very good player, and having him at 14th was too low. Not having, and we should all talk about this, not having Caitlyn Deloach on my list at all.
Right.
He is a guy that I think we ended up, most people had him on the list, but he ended up 33rd or 34th on our list. I mean, he was a top 10 guy. He turned into a good college linebacker his first season. So there's too many to count, Tom. This was like Javi Baez in a horrible August slump where it was nothing but strikeouts.
Corey's doing what I do when I do the dishes. I do them poorly, so my wife gets mad and doesn't want me doing it. He's trying to get out of
do this again. It hurts our credibility.
Don't make that public, Ira. They're not supposed to know that trick.
Corey's trying to get out of the top 40 for next year.
Yeah, it hurts our credibility to have me throw this together.
Yeah, and if you have the Javi Baez take on your Corey bingo card, you can check that off. Right
I did it. I got it.
He got it in one more before we get to 2022. All right, Gene, mea culpa time. Take a look at your list. What do you not like?
Yeah, I will say, if you guys remember, we shot this last summer. We said this is the hardest top 40 ever because we had the first 2 or 3 and we're like, we have no idea because there were so many moving parts and so many new guys coming in. We just didn't know. So give you a little bit of a break. And like Corey, we're not getting fooled again by Travis Jay. I mean, we've seen the athleticism. I saw him play at Madison. He was a freak. He looks, I mean, I just don't know how he's not, whether it's injuries, something going on in his head, he's just not doing it on the field. I don't know what it is, but it's not translating. So I had him, I think, number 6. So that was way off on that one. My 5 and 6 were, I dropped the ball. I don't know what I was thinking there. So I had Amari Gaynor at 5. He was okay, maybe worthy of cracking the top 40, but definitely not the top 5. So I completely dropped the ball on that one. Having obviously Dante Lucas on the list at all was a mistake. So that's my biggest one. But Travis Jay and Amari Gaynor, man, I completely whiffed on that one.
Ira, you did ask for time, and I didn't forget. Maybe you thought I'd forget, but I did not. Anybody else on your list that sticks out now?
The dog ate my homework. Don't remember me. No, you know what? I'm going to go with Davion Johnson. I really faded Davion Johnson. When he was not in good shape in the spring, barely. I don't even know if he practiced in the spring. And I thought, as a guy who is going into his 6th year, to not be in great shape and be coming back from an injury, I just thought he might pack it in. I didn't even know if he would stay for his senior year. I had him at number 38. It turns out he was a vital part of this team. I mean, he started a lot of the year at center or at guard, and I thought he played well. I thought this was by far the best Davion Johnson's ever played. And I don't know if I had him lower than everybody else, but I definitely had him pretty low. As a guy who started a lot of games in his career, so I apologize, Big Baby. I should have had you higher than 38 for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, speaking of offensive linemen, and this goes back to a headlines argument we've had multiple times about Dylan Gibbons. But, like, I had him lowest. I had him at 26, but nobody had him super high.
Yeah, we had him around 20, I think.
Corey, you need to give credit because when Aslan's not here as part of the list, he did have him highest than anybody.
Okay.
Dylan Gibbons at 16. So shout out to Aslan. You get during the next podcast, give him some props.
Oh, I will. So he was such an unknown, though, and he comes in, and I think if we re-rank this and did the top 40 after the season, he's top 10 for sure. You know, obviously Jordan Travis and Jermaine Johnson are 1 and 2 if we re-rank. But Dylan Gibbons is in the top 10, and none of us. Again, it was so hard because there were so many transfers and so many young guys. We had no idea. Really, not to give ourselves excuses, but it's a really hard endeavor, especially when you haven't seen most of these guys play. We just had no idea how good any of these guys would be. But next year, when we do the top 40, I can promise you, Dylan Gibbons will be higher on my list than 26th. He might crack the top 25, Ira.
It'll be, I'm sure the Gibbons family will be happy to hear that. Hey, Tom, can I recap the other 2 panelists were Jeff and Aslan? And a couple other highlights that just for the story, if you want to read, there's a story that kind of recaps some of the highlights as well. Jeff also had Andrew Parchment at number 4, which was unfortunate for him. I don't know. I guess I don't really know how we should evaluate Andrew Parchment. He did have 4th and 14, but other than that, he had about 300 yards receiving, which is not what you expect from the number 4 player on your list. And then he, on the flip side, though, Jeff did have Kevin Knowles higher than anybody else. He had Kevin Knowles at number 31. We all had him in the 30s. He ended up being a starter in that secondary and probably should have been in the top 20. And then Aslan had his biggest miss was Lawrence Toafili at number 4, which I don't blame him too much. I think we all thought Toafili would have a good year. Did not materialize. He ended up being their 4th best rusher, and he had him at number 4 overall on the team. And on the positive side, he had Travis Jay the lowest. It's kind of the same thing what Gene did with Andrew Parchment. He gets credit for having Travis Jay lower than anybody else. Aslan had Travis Jay down at number 18, while the rest of us, I think, all had him in the top 10.
Well, and also Corey served up as late Christmas gift to me because it was a segue. Number 1 and 2 on everybody's list, if we re-ranked them at the end of the season, spoiler alert, Jermaine Johnson, Jordan Travis, not necessarily in that order, but those would be your top 2, and you could make your arguments from there. So we'll leave you on one more positive note, one more bright and shining Nole before we get to 2022 on the calendar. We'll start with Gene. Gene, if you had to rank a 3rd best Florida State Seminole from this year, so top 2 are out of the equation. We know what those 2 guys are. You've got some choices. Keir Thomas, maybe even Dylan Gibbons, if you really fancy the offensive line play. Jamie Robinson leading the team in tackles, had some big interceptions. Where would you go with the number 3 player on your list if you had to re-rank him today?
Well, I think you nailed it. One of the guys you mentioned, that's Jamie Robinson to me. I think he just solidified that secondary. He said he was not only good in coverage, but I mean, a tackle. It was a night and day with him out there from what we saw last season. I think he was the glue that held those guys together. So to me, Keir would be a good one too to put up there if I had to pick. But I wonder, without Jermaine Johnson, he's good, but I don't know if he would have stood out the way he did without Jermaine on the other side. I don't want to pick two defensive ends either. So to me, it's Jamie Robinson. It's actually pretty simple for me. He's a solid number 3.
All right, Corey?
Yeah, I'll just be different to be different. Jamie Robinson was the third most impactful player on the team, but Keir Thomas was close. I mean, again, Florida State hadn't had bookends like that in a good long while, and it really did make an impact. The defense was actually competent, capable, unlike what we had seen the 2 years prior. So, I think so much of that was those two defensive ends. So I'll take Keir Thomas, also because I had him third on my list. I just want to ride that out to finish the year off in style. But yeah, Keir Thomas had a very nice season, was better than even I thought he was going to be. But Jamie Robinson's a great pick too.
Corey, consistency, Clark. All right, Ira, you're number 3.
I'm going to be different too. And maybe, Tom, you can either be different also, or you can break the tie. But I'm going to go with Treyshawn Corbin. I think, if you think back to this past season, he had some huge runs for this team. And if you didn't have him, I mean, I love Treyshawn Ward, but I don't think Treyshawn Ward has proven he could be a guy that carries the ball 20 times in a game with ball security and everything else. And then but beyond that, Toafili did not have a good year. DJ Williams, the transfer from Auburn, did not have a very good year. Treyshawn Corbin was the backbone of that offense throughout two different quarterbacks and all the different changes. So I'll go with Treyshawn Corbin. I think he's as worthy as your guys' picks. Maybe not more worthy, but I think they're all in that conversation.
Since I didn't get to pick a preseason, I won't do a postseason thing, but I will just make a quick case for Dylan Gibbons to be in the conversation. What happens if he's not in the lineup? We saw what happens when he wasn't in the lineup. And Ira mentioned Davion Johnson. We were calling for him at the end of the season. At least I know I was. Right. Isn't he your best guard on the bench? I don't know what happened there, but something did that he wasn't allowed to play. If you didn't have Dylan in the lineup because of what they like to do with pulling linemen, it's even with Devontae Love-Taylor, who was just never healthy this year, our man from Trench Talk. It's unfortunate that he never could get up to 100% speed. It didn't look the same. If 75 wasn't the guy making the action happen, it didn't look the same. So he's certainly going to be in everybody's top 10 next year, as you guys talked about.
Hasn't Corey had a tough enough last 20 minutes without you?
Yeah, then he throws Dylan Gibbons in my face. Good grief.
I won't get a segue like the top 2 thing ever again.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's how that works. For Gene Williams, the founder, administrator of Warchant.com, Corey Clark, lead writer, senior writer right here at Warchant.com, and he's hardcore on Warchant TV. It's Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of Warchant.com. We wish you all a happy, bright, and safe new year right here from Warchant TV. Please hit that like button underneath to get more coverage from us. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you next time on Warchant TV.